we're going to do the intro in 3, 2, 1. Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin.
I'm Veronica.
And welcome back to Baphomet's Cozy Perch.
Welcome.
I think we're going to keep some of that intro in because it's funny.
Okay.
Anyway, thanks for joining us today. Today we are talking Harry Potter.
Of course.
You can't tell. I'm very themed today. You'll notice that about me. I'll tend to be themed when I can.
I don't have themed clothing, so I can't be that, but I'm supportive of you being themed.
Thank you. I think we should start today's podcast off by telling our listeners what house we're in, because I feel like we haven't talked Harry Potter yet.
True.
So I feel like we'll probably do many episodes on Harry Potter, but I feel like we should tell them what houses we're in.
Sure.
So do you want to start?
Sure. It might be not obvious or very obvious to some. I am a Slytherin. It's me. A Slytherin. Although I took the Pottermore quiz very recently for some reason, and it told me I was a Gryffindor, and I was like, okay. And then I took it again, and it was like, no, you're Slytherin. And I was like, yeah, that's what I thought. So
it's weird when they upgraded when they redid whatever several years back when they redid the Pottermore site, right? And it had everybody retake the quiz for some reason. You could either choose your old result, or you could keep your new one. And a lot of people who retook the quiz got a completely different house that they didn't associate with, they didn't feel was accurate. So I'm one of the only ones that stayed my house. So I was Ravenclaw before. I'm Ravenclaw. Hi, I hadn't said that yet. I'm Ravenclaw. I was Ravenclaw before, and then I think I took some random quizzes that said I was Hufflepuff a couple times, but mostly it's been Ravenclaw, and I retook the quiz and it was Ravenclaw. But one of my cousins was Hufflepuff, and she's a pretty hardcore Hufflepuff, and she got Ravenclaw, so now she associates with Ravenclaw. She actually chose to keep the new house.
Wow.
She stayed Ravenclaw. But yeah, it did that for a lot of people. Gave them the house they weren't expecting. I don't know why.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there are some very common ground between Slytherin and Gryffindor, but I just the fullness of Gryffindor, I'm just like, it's not quite as me as Slytherin is. So
yeah.
Even though I am wearing red today, I am a Slytherin.
Yeah, you don't actually wear a ton of green. You do wear a lot of red.
Yeah, it's one of my colors. It's one of my favorite colors. I do like green, but it's just not in my color palette very often.
Yeah. So yeah, today we're doing Harry Potter.
Yes.
And I thought we would start. I realized I do that a lot, and I never realized I did that. I'm very conscious of it now.
I feel that.
It's my placeholder.
Yeah.
I think it's a placeholder I developed to try to not say So instead of saying and as I think of a thing, I need to learn to just say nothing.
Just don't use your breath. Just think in your head. I'm so bad at that too. Head. I'm so bad at that.
Anyway, today we're talking about Harry Potter. We are going. I almost did it. You caught me. This is gonna be a fun podcast to edit. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good one. I have a feeling this is gonna be a podcast where I leave a lot of bloopers in just to have it be a fun podcast. You're gonna hear a lot of bloopers this time. Oh man. So we're talking Harry Potter today.
Yes.
Attempt number 5 at saying this. So we're talking Harry Potter today. I thought we would start with oh yeah. I thought we would start with Dumbledore and Voldemort. They're two of the big names in the book. We're not talking Harry Potter yet. That'll be another topic, I think, when we return to Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And there's some really interesting characters that I feel like we could go into, and some that are, I mean, Voldemort is going to be interesting today. There are some other ones that are very, like, I would argue, very on the evil spectrum. So it'll be interesting to kind of talk that through and
Yeah.
hear your thoughts about it. But yeah, so today we're just going to talk Dumbledore and Voldemort. And the reason I chose the two of them is because they're kind of the polar opposites in the book. You have Harry, who is, learning from one to fight the other, kind of.
Yeah.
So they're both main figures for him, that shape him into who he is. So that's kind of why I thought that they would be fun to do
Mhm.
together
Mhm.
instead of doing like Voldemort and like one of Voldemort's followers, or like Dumbledore and Harry. I thought it would be fun to do like the opposites of Dumbledore and Voldemort.
Sure. Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
No,
So that's what I chose.
yeah, it makes a lot of sense to have them together because they are kind of the two pillars of, good and bad, especially in the earlier parts of Harry Potter, the first couple of books and movies. It's definitely more of a clear stance, or so it would seem, for what we
Yes.
know.
Dumbledore Dumbledore is going to be the fascinating one to
Mhm.
talk about because so much of his character does kind of have a shift towards the end.
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting. It's was a hard pill for me to swallow because I was a hardcore Dumbledore lover, like to the point where when the sixth book came out, I was there at Barnes and Noble at the midnight release party that
Mhm.
Barnes and Noble had. You had to reserve tickets, guys. I dressed up. I met friends there. We were there the whole night. We did the crafts. We did everything. And when we were allowed to get our books, our reserved copies that we'd already paid for, I read the sixth book in 2 days.
Wow.
And like, if you actually know me, I'm a reader, but I'm a slow reader. I don't read things quickly. Yeah, 2 days. I read it in 2 days and I cried. I cried when Dumbledore died.
Yeah.
Like, actually, physically had tears rolling down my face. And my mom was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "Dumbledore died." She was like, "You're crying at a book? Caitlin, it's a book." And she loves books. My mom is a hardcore reader. And she was like, "I don't understand." My mom's also an Aquarius.
Uh,
And if you like the Enneagram, she's a 5. If that means anything to any of our listeners, you'll be like, got it."
I see.
Yes. She doesn't show emotion very much.
Mhm.
She keeps it in. It's in there, locked tight. My mom was also a Ravenclaw. Very different spectrum of Ravenclaw. I'm the like creativity, like that kind of art loving thirst for knowledge. My mom's more of a wit and knowledge, like berry knowledge based and
Mhm.
wit.
Mhm.
I think that's what puts, she's creative also, but I would say that's what puts her in Ravenclaws, those two qualities.
Gotcha.
Anyway, so yeah, so talking about Dumbledore is going to be interesting for me because I seriously was a huge core Dumbledore lover, and then the seventh book like rocked my world, man.
Yeah.
Rocked my world.
I was so in shock. Should we start with Dumbledore since we're on his topic?
Sure,
Could
yeah, we
use
can
the
start
topic?
with Dumbledore.
Mhm.
Yeah, topic, yeah. Yeah, I
I
think that
I
would
don't
be.
know. I can't. Words are so hard, dude.
I agree.
But cool.
Yeah, so Dumbledore gets introduced. The first time we meet Dumbledore is first book.
Mhm.
He's actually one of the first main wizard characters that we meet.
Mhm.
In the movie, he's the first. So in the book, he's not quite the first. You just don't really know what's going on for a
Mhm.
couple chapters. In the movie, he's like right there. He's the first one we meet.
Mhm.
And he's written to be very father figure like.
Yes.
I feel like she based a lot of his looks and personality traits on Merlin
Yeah,
a little bit.
I would agree.
You, right? Yeah, he's a little
Mhm.
eccentric, but like in a great way.
Yeah. I mean, the beard, come on.
Long, yeah, long beard. He's very kind. He has like very kind face. He's very gentle.
Mhm.
In the book, he's described as being very soft spoken a lot of times. He
Mhm.
doesn't really yell. Which, that's a whole different topic when we get to the movies.
Yeah. We all know what we're thinking about right now.
Uh, Good God. I grew to love, right? I grew to love the actor who took over as
Mhm.
Dumbledore
Mhm.
throughout time.
Yeah.
But oof, those first couple movies were rough.
It was a rough interpretation, but they figured it out.
It was his own interpretation.
Yeah.
And you know what? I understand it's got to be hard to walk into a series like that where someone's already been established and the fans love him so much,
Yeah.
and you want to put your own spin on it because you don't want to seem, as an actor, or at least this is how I would be too, you don't want to seem like you're coming in and trying to be that person, because you're never going to be that person.
Yeah.
So he did kind of need to try to find his own way to
Yeah.
be Dumbledore, but I just don't know that it came across correctly the first couple movies. I think he eventually found his Dumbledore.
Yeah.
I think it just took longer
Yeah.
than the original actor.
And, like,
Uh,
where he's coming in, like, the 3rd and 4th, he came in the 3rd movie, right? It was just the 1st and 2nd
mhm.
movie, yeah. I feel like, I mean, that was even somewhat of a start of a turning point of Dumbledore's like, what we see in Dumbledore's character
That's true.
anyway. So, like, I'm sure it was difficult to kind of navigate, like, portraying that turning point that we start to see, but also, like, doing it on your own terms and not in the terms of someone else. So, I'm sure that was
Yeah,
that was kind of difficult.
like balancing
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, I know it's hard, and you make acting choices, and people need to also understand. This has turned into a completely
I
different
know.
topic. Also understand that as an actor, you actually only have so much freedom. Like, you have freedom on set to make choices,
Mhm.
but you also have to listen to everybody else. You have to listen to the director. You have to listen to what the writers have written for you
Mhm.
and what they're kind of wanting. So, not all of those acting choices were just his acting choices, right? Like,
Yeah.
you work on those things with everybody else. Actors don't just go into the room and go, F it all, I'm going to do whatever the heck I want. You have to work in tandem with everybody else on
Yeah.
set. So it's not like he just made those acting choices and everybody was like, whoa, what did he do? All right, well, I guess that's what we're going. Like, they probably all decided, like, oh, you know what? Maybe you should try it this way. Maybe we should try to portray this. Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I'm sure they had many takes where he tried different ways to do everything. And that was what they decided on in editing, too. You have to
True.
realize that, like, they pick the best ones. Scenes have 20 takes sometimes,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
and they pick the one that fits the best in the sequence of scenes, not just the best scene.
Yeah.
Like, how does it fit with everything? How does it flow? So you just got to kind of keep all that in mind when you talk about him.
Yeah,
But anyway,
yeah.
I know we could talk about this forever because we're both actors, and like we also kind of edit, and we've taken, when you do acting school, you have to do everything across the board. You can't just be an actor. I mean, I guess you could if you really tried to try to get around it all, but a lot of times colleges want you to take multiple different courses, and you should try things behind the scenes. It's good for you as an actor to understand how everything works. So
Yeah.
we've both taken like editing courses and lighting courses and things like that. So
Mhm.
it's hard not to think of those things when you think in terms of movies.
Yeah.
But getting back to Dumbledore as an actual character, especially in the book, he's very happy, soft spoken, and eccentric,
Yes.
especially the first several books. And I wish they would have portrayed that more in the movie. His
Mhm.
eccentricism. What's
Uh,
his
eccentricity, eccentricism,
mm, yeah, that.
that.
I wish they would have shown how eccentric he was.
Yeah, he was a little bit more
And
composed and just kind of not stoic, but just very almost mysterious,
mm,
and less, yeah, eccentric than what I feel like I've seen portrayed in the books.
yeah, in the books, he says funny things. Like, he's like, the first feast, he's like, before we eat, a few words. And then he says, like, nitwit, you know, like he says like a bunch of weird things, then he's like, that's it. Then he sits down and everyone's like, all right, yeah, and they eat, you know. You know? Or, like, the part where he has them all sing the school song, which is never a thing in the movie. He has them all sing the school song, and he's
Mhm.
like, "Pick your favorite tune, everyone sing it once." And everyone picks a completely different tune and sings the song to whatever tune they want, and the Weasley twins are, like, the last ones singing because they did it to the funeral march, so they're doing it super slow.
Mm.
Like, funny things like that in the book that I think that they could have incorporated a little bit at least into his character. I realize they can't keep everything, but it would have been funny to see him be a little bit more eccentric
He
that
was
way.
almost, like, Mad Hatter-esque in some of, like, the goofy things that he did. Do you like
Yeah.
would you say you would agree with
Well,
that?
yeah, Mad Hatter or even Merlin, when you look at especially the Disney portrayal of Merlin
Mm,
in The Sword and the Stone,
mhm,
Merlin is very eccentric. Like he bounces off the walls and he says funny things and he uses an abnormal teaching
mhm,
structure, right, to
mhm.
get through to Arthur. And so or what do they call him? They call him something else in the movie. They don't call him Arthur.
Artie? No, that's not it.
No. They call him something weird. Like a bad like nickname. You know what I mean? Like a
It's been so long since I've seen that particular film.
Wart. Wart.
Oh,
I think they
no.
call him Wart. I think that's right. I'm almost positive. Anyway, yeah, so he has kind of those qualities. He's very eccentric. So,
Mhm,
but like that lovable eccentric, like the Mad Hatter, like Merlin, he's
yeah,
very lovable but crazy,
mhm.
but brilliant. Like crazy
Extremely.
but brilliant and lovable.
Yeah,
And yeah, in the first several books and movies, we don't really see a lot of faults with Dumbledore.
no.
We're told a lot about his accomplishments, things that he's done
Mhm,
for the wizarding world. He has a lot of titles along with his name.
that's true.
Order of Merlin First Class, Head, Mugwump, Mug. Oh wow, people are gonna like the Harry Potter community is gonna go after me if I don't remember this off the top of my head.
Mm,
Mugwump, Supreme Mugwump, Supreme Mugwump,
there it is. I love that.
Chief Chief Warlock of the Wizenmont, Wizingamont. How do you say that? I never really knew how to say that.
How's it spelled?
Wizen Wizengamot. Gamot.
Wizengamot.
Gamot. Gamot.
Wizengamot.
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 He was also yeah, we're just gonna I think that's fine.
Okay, great.
He was head of Transfiguration when
Yes.
he was at Hogwarts.
Mhm,
He was head boy when he was going there and prefect, much like Percy.
mhm.
And oh, and Grand Sorcerer. And now headmaster of Hogwarts. So
Guy.
yeah, right. And so you're kind of right away made to feel like you can trust him. He's very good. So yeah, so Dumbledore is kind of made out to be this great figure. And we've talked about this a couple different times where we have figures in pop culture and mythology, mythological pop culture everywhere where it seems on the surface or even somewhat below the surface that they're very much on one side of that spectrum of good and evil.
Yeah.
And I would say Dumbledore was very much put on good spectrum. I don't think any one of us really questioned how great Dumbledore was
Yeah.
for like at least 5 books.
Yeah, he was portrayed very, very much just the wise, like, fatherly figure, like, it's almost like adoptive fatherly figure, somewhat, maybe more like grandfather figure
Yeah.
of Harry Potter, because
Mhm.
Sirius was more like father, but very, very much like all-knowing, wise, sweet grandpa.
And like he wanted the best for Harry and he
Yes.
was doing everything out of the good to like try to save Harry. That's what it seemed like.
Yeah,
Everything he was doing was to protect Harry and protect everybody else.
yeah,
So, and then we get to I would argue the first time I started being like, that's kind of odd. You know, and the first time that Harry started questioning Dumbledore's motives or whether or not he really cared for Harry would be in the 5th book when he starts to kind of distance himself from Harry with no explanation.
Yeah.
He won't really talk to him. Now, mind you, the 5th book is my least favorite of all the books, and a lot of people love the 5th book. A lot of my friends, that's their favorite book. I don't know if it's because they were teenagers and I'm in the right age range where we were actually the ages when the books were coming out. So we were very much like associating with what they were going through. But I have always hated the 5th book. Harry gets so whiny. He's so irritating to me. He yells at everybody. He like gets angry at the drop of a hat. And I realize that a lot of that has to do with the fact that Voldemort was kind of like in him a little, right? And that's a whole thing. But it's also because he's a teenage boy and he's going through a lot.
Yeah.
But oh my God, it drives me crazy. But I do have to agree that Dumbledore doesn't necessarily handle things as well as he could have.
Yeah,
During that book.
especially as well as you would assume he would, considering what we know about him for the past, 4 books. So it's where honestly where you first start seeing him as a human having faults and maybe not, being this perfect figure that we've kind of been used to.
Right, having faults, and you do kind of, I don't know if I saw it the first read through because again I was like the age that the kids are, so you don't pick up on things as much, but having read through the series so many times at this point, you do kind of start to see that that's the start of where you're seeing him have a I don't want to say a game that he's playing, that's not what I'm trying to, what's a strategy. He has a plan. He has a strategy that he's not letting everybody in on. And you start to see it in the 5th book. He has a reason for doing things that he's not necessarily telling everybody else. And you're like, oh, what's going on there? Why do you do these things? Why is this happening? Why are you not filling people in?
Yeah.
And it's because there's a reason for it.
Right.
He's keeping secrets from people. He's keeping secrets from Harry. He knows more than he's letting on. And the 5th book is really when we start to see that. And then, him and Harry have a little bit of a confrontation. And then he's like, okay, you're right. I need to start telling you more. I need to fill you in on things. It's my fault. And then after that is when you start to see more and more faults. You start to see more flaws from him as the the 5th book progresses, and then especially in the 6th book you see a lot more, and then the 7th is just like, what just happened? By the end of the 5th book, he explains to Harry how much he knew that he wasn't telling Harry about, and how he knew that he should have been telling Harry. He just was trying to protect him in a way. That's how he made it sound to Harry, right? That he had grown to care about him so much that he couldn't bring himself to tell Harry the things that he knew he should tell him. But in a way, even if that were true, even if, and I'm sure in a way it was, I'm sure that is partially what had happened. But even if that was 100% true, that's exactly what happened. That's a fault on its own. And it's something that a lot of people are prone to, even the best people, right? Like parents and stuff. You love your kid, or you love your friends, or you love your family so much that you don't tell them things, or that you do things that maybe you shouldn't do to try and hide things from them or protect them, but in reality it's hurting them to not know the truth. Yeah. So that's kind of where he starts. And then the 6th book, we learn a little bit more, and he damages his hand because he puts the ring on. And I think that was my first clue, even the first time reading it through, because you don't know why he put the ring on until the 7th book. You don't even really know that that's what had happened, that he put the ring on and that's what hurt his hand. But when you find that out, I remembered thinking, like, why though?
Yeah.
Like, knowing what it was.
Being as smart as he is.
Right. Why would you do that?
Mhm.
Like, you had to have known that something bad was gonna happen. So, that was kind of, yeah, seeing the faults of him and seeing that he is human, that he makes mistakes, and he's prone to feelings and things like that just like everybody else. He's not this figure that was put up on the pedestal that we all believed that he was, right?
Yeah.
I find that interesting. And then we get to the 7th book.
Mhm.
They find out that Rita Skeeter is writing a book about Dumbledore.
Mhm.
He leaves Harry and Ron and Hermione kind of cryptic gifts, if you will, from his will.
Right.
And I think that's the first time that the three of them started going like, what the heck? Why wouldn't he just tell us? Why wouldn't he explain? Why wouldn't he have told us this?
Yeah.
They're looking for Horcruxes, and Ron and Hermione are starting to realize, like, wow, he really didn't tell you much. Like, he told you a lot without actually telling you a lot,
Yeah.
you know? And so they're starting to question it, and then the book comes out.
Mhm.
Oh no, they're at the wedding. That's how they first start hearing things. They're at the wedding at the beginning of the
Oh,
book.
right. Right. I forgot about the wedding.
I know, my brain. Yeah, they're at the wedding, and one of Ron's relatives is going on about Dumbledore and how he wasn't really the greatest person because she lived near them or something. I think
Mhm.
she at one point, anyway, and she's talking about things that had happened that are going to be in Rita, that'll probably be in Rita's book. And I remember that that was the first time that the three of them were like, um, what are you talking
Yeah,
about
like,
that's
what are you
happening?
saying?
Yeah, what are you talking about? Dumbledore had a sister
Mhm.
and, all of these things. And
Mhm.
then the book comes out, and Harry has been having these dreams about Grindelwald, but he
Yes.
doesn't know it's Grindelwald.
Yes.
And the book comes out, and he sees the picture of Dumbledore with Grindelwald. And that's supposed to be one of the things. That's one of the things that we've been hearing for 7 books,
Mhm.
that Dumbledore was this great wizard who was the only one who could defeat this pre Voldemort,
Yeah.
like the precursor,
Yeah.
the Anakin Skywalker to Kylo Ren, if you will,
Oh,
right?
oh, we did a crossover already, yes. You're right.
Come to find out they were best friends.
Mhm.
They were best friends, and Harry's like, "I didn't know this guy at all.
Mhm.
What the hell?"
Yeah,
Like,
you realize you didn't know him at even a little bit.
he had a sister that they kept locked in a house, and,
Mhm.
at that time, he doesn't know all of the whole story,
Yeah.
but keeps his sister locked in a house, and he's communicating with this guy who eventually becomes this dark sorcerer, and then doesn't even defeat him right away. Like, knows what he is,
Mhm.
knows what he's doing, and lets him do it for a while before he finally, like, steps up and faces him, and
Yeah.
just all of these things. And then towards the end of the 7th book, come to find out Dumbledore had basically been prepping Harry to die the whole time.
Just oh my god. I was so I I was so sad when I learned that. I felt so betrayed. And it's he's just like this completely different person. As a person who I think started with the movies and then ventured into
Mhm.
the series a little bit. Um I the movies themselves are so nostalgic because they just happened in a time when you were younger.
Mhm.
So to kind of grow up and have that veil unlifted and like almost the adult world like shown to you of like what's actually been happening this whole time was so saddening and betraying to me and in my heart. It hurt so bad.
Yeah, it was kind of a little bit of a slap in the face, but
Yeah.
also a realization that all of us eventually needed to learn anyway in real life, right? That you don't know what someone's past is. You don't know what people are going through. You don't know what people are hiding.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that to sound morbid. It's just that everybody has a past,
Mhm.
right? And everybody has made bad decisions. at some point, even some of the people that you think are the greatest people ever.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the book you realize that that doesn't negate, like, Harry's not angry at Dumbledore by the end of the book. He
Yeah.
names one of his children
Yeah.
after him, you know?
Yeah.
The point I think that J.K. Rowling was trying to get across to the readers with that whole thing is that people make mistakes. People aren't 100% good,
Yeah.
but they can still be good people and they can still learn from their mistakes. We've talked about this a couple times. They can learn from their mistakes and eventually do good and work to correct those mistakes as much as they possibly can
Mhm.
and things like that. You know what I mean? We'll talk about him basically prepping Harry to die
Yeah.
because that in itself, I think you can argue is a good and bad. Like that's
Exactly.
not even one or the other. That itself, that act is on the spectrum of good
Yeah.
and evil.
Yeah. Because he's, he from the beginning of Tom Riddle, like he knew that this kid was, he knew that this kid was bad news and he was keeping his eye on him. And then, when he became Voldemort and wanted to, take over the world pretty much, obviously as somebody of such high stature and ability, you kind of feel like it's your job to defeat this evil force of nature and to protect your world. And so
Mhm.
is it good or bad really that he saw what he had to do with Harry and was like, okay, this is apparently going to be, after that prophecy, is like, this is going to be the kid that's going to do the thing, so we need to make sure that he can do the thing, so we're going to befriend him, we're going to make sure he gets everything that he needs to be able to do that. So it's like, how much of the wall of this is what I have to do was there really, and how much care was there actually involved with it? Because obviously if you're involved with a person like that for so long, of course there's going to be some sort of real relationship that you develop, one would think. So it can be argued, like, how how emotionally distant from everything was Dumbledore in general. H-
Yeah.
do we know?
He right. He knew there was no getting around it. The
Yeah.
prophecy came true because Voldemort made it so.
Yes.
And there's nothing he can do at that point because it's already been set in motion.
Hmm.
So, what else is there to do but protect the child as much as possible and teach that child as much as you can and prepare them, even though you know, right? The prophecy was told to Dumbledore. He
Yeah.
knew what the outcome was going to be,
Yeah.
but he can't stop it. He can't stop the fact that it's been put in motion by Voldemort. So, all he can do is prepare Harry to the best of his abilities and make sure that when he fulfills the prophecy, he does it at the best time with the best circumstances, with as many people behind him ready to take over as possible.
Yeah.
And even though I know that when we all read the story, we were all like, like, oh my god, like you said, like you feel betrayed. You feel like this father figure betrayed you, and you even hear Snape say it, right? When you're going back, when Harry's going back and looking through Snape's memories after Snape gives them to him,
Yeah.
there's a scene in the book. I can't remember if it was one of the ones put in the movie or not, now that I'm thinking of it. I don't watch the 7th movie very often because it's a little depressing for
Hmm.
me. Uh, but, it's a little dark. So, and it's 2 parts. But anyway, that's a whole different tangent. I can't remember if it's in the book or if it's in the movie as well as the book. But in the book, there's a scene in Snape's memories where he's talking to Dumbledore, and Dumbledore's saying, like, you have to make sure that Harry gets this information at the right time because he has to die. And Snape is like, you've been helping him die. And Dumbledore's like, essentially.
Yes, and they did put that
And
in the movie. They did.
okay, thank you. And Snape basically feels betrayed just like all of us. Like he says, like, you, like, he's basically like, "You made me look after this kid and protect him just so he could die at the right moment? Like, I
Mhm.
don't understand." And Dumbledore's like, "Well, you know." He's basically like, "It's not really for you to understand, it's for Harry to understand. Harry will understand. I just
Yeah.
need you to give him the information at the right time." And Snape is like, "What the hell?"
I mean,
And I
especially
understand.
with all the stuff going on with Snape, like, that's a hard blow.
Yeah, it's a hard blow for him. He's been doing all of this in Lily's memory, thinking that he's keeping the one thing alive that he can of hers,
Yeah.
only to find out that really he was just making it so that he died at the right moment. And he's like, "What the
It's like, that was not the plan.
I don't understand what just happened." Yeah. So he's kind of angry at Dumbledore. And besides that, Dumbledore, the other thing we learn is that Dumbledore knew that Draco had been given the mission to kill him.
Yes.
And we know now at that point, right, reading the books, you know when you find out that information that killing somebody splits your soul. That's how Voldemort's able to make the Horcruxes.
Yeah.
Dumbledore didn't want Draco's soul tampered with like that. He didn't want him to have his soul split by
Yeah.
killing somebody, especially so young. So he just basically is like, "Well, Snape, I mean, you're really not the best guy anyway, and you've already killed people, so you're gonna kill me." And Snape's like, "You've been befriending." I'm like, he basically feels the same way. Like, "You've been befriending me, helping me through all of this. Got me on your side. All of these things. I do all of this shit for you, but my soul doesn't matter.
Mhm.
I can kill you. My soul can split again.
Yeah.
That's fine." And Dumbledore's basically like, "Well, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
but that's all of these decisions that Dumbledore made, he's between a rock and a hard place. They're all things where he doesn't have a choice.
Mm.
The outcome is going to happen. Draco has to kill him, and Dumbledore's already dying anyway.
Yes.
He's slowly dying. And what is the better decision? Let a kid kill you and wreck his entire life when he still has the chance to become better?
Mhm.
Or let the adult who's made many, many, many wrong decisions, killed tons of innocent people at this point, at least that's the insinuation that we get,
Yeah.
caused all of this to happen in the first place by eavesdropping and hearing the prophecy, but only halfway, and telling only half the prophecy to Voldemort, and making sure that it came true and all of these things.
Yeah.
I mean, you do understand why he chose what he chose. I mean, he allowed Draco to stay pure and not have that burden on him,
Yeah.
and go and live a normal life eventually and learn from everything. And he probably knew that Snape's days were numbered, that Voldemort was going to eventually figure something out in some way and kill him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was undercover for a very, very powerful dark wizard. There's only so much time you have there.
Yeah.
Eventually someone's going to figure it out.
Yeah, 'cause they're not dumb, they're just not knowing at that moment, so, yeah, at some point,
Right.
they're gonna find out.
Or something.
Yeah.
And, you know, so yeah, so I'm sure Dumbledore always kind of knew more than he let on, and there was a reason for everything, but, he has to make hard decisions. So it's the same thing, Snape and Harry. He knows Harry has to die. He just has to get him there the right way.
Yeah.
And Harry understands that in the book. You can tell in the book and the movie he's upset at first.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't be? That's a human reaction.
Right. But when he starts explaining it, I think, who does he tell? Does he No, he doesn't tell anyone. He's talking to himself. I can't remember now. I feel like he has a conversation with somebody that he knows that the best thing for him to do is to die. Like, he has to go into the forest and die. Like, that is his destiny.
Mhm.
Does he have that conversation with Ron and Hermione, or is it just something that I'm making up?
I honestly don't remember.
Interesting. I feel like in the movie he stops and talks to them. Like, they know
He explains something. I don't know how much he explains, and, like,
in the
how much
book
depth.
in the book, he doesn't say anything to anyone.
Yeah.
In the book, he stays under his, cloak, and he goes out, and he doesn't say anything to anyone because he doesn't want anyone trying to stop him.
Mm.
Interesting. Anyway, he knows, though. The point is, Harry knows, after calming down for a second, that there was a reason, like, that it wasn't a malicious thing that Dumbledore was doing, that there was no other choice, that eh, Dumbledore did what he had to do.
Mhm.
And Harry now has to do what he has to do. Like, it's his job. He has to fulfill this prophecy and go into the forest and face Voldemort and die.
Yeah.
And Dumbledore gave him as many tools as he could to help him with that.
Yeah.
And what else was he supposed to do?
Yeah.
I mean, there's really nothing else Dumbledore could do. So, and then when Harry dies, right? He has everything with him. He's got the only thing he doesn't have is the Elder Wand,
Yes.
which you know, technically he does have, but he doesn't have it, and we don't know that in the book. I kind of didn't understand that at first. Like, wait, but he's only got two. How is he Master of Death? How is he able to walk into there? He's only got two of the Deathly Hollows. I don't understand. But you don't learn until later that he actually does control the wand, which is why it's okay that he only has physically two things with him.
Yeah.
Anyway, but he walks in as well prepared as he could, and then he doesn't really die. He goes into like a halfway, and he's able to talk to Dumbledore, whether that be real or not. And they have a whole conversation, and Dumbledore explains a lot to him. You get to have kind of a little bit
Mhm.
of a closure with that. They have a nice conversation, and Dumbledore even says, like, you're the better man. Dumbledore even admits, like, that he himself was never able to make the right decisions.
Mhm.
He knew that he could be clouded by power. Being as smart as he was and all of that, he had moments when he was younger of being clouded by that power and what it could do.
Yeah.
And that's why he never became Minister of Magic. He understood, after everything happened with his sister,
Yeah.
he realized the repercussions that could happen with him liking that power too much.
Yes.
And so he vowed to never put himself in a situation where he could have too much power. So instead of being Minister of Magic, even though everybody wanted him to be, and he would have been the best person for the job because fudge is awful,
Yeah.
he never lets himself do that. And he says that, like, I could not be Minister of Magic. I could not handle that responsibility. So in the end, you learn that he knew his own limitations. He knew where his problems lie, and he did everything he could to try to not let those situations happen and
Mhm.
be the best person he could be and make the best choices he could make, even though he had a lot of hard decisions, I think.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did that train of thought all
Yeah.
wrap up?
No, yes, it did. It did. And I think the kind of uh fork in the road we're left with at that point is kind of deciding whether or not the actions and the decisions that Dumbledore had to make, obviously, the to make the world not implode, were they an act of selfishness or selflessness, or was it a mixture of both? Because I think that's kind of where you define what actions become good actions and what actions
Mm.
become bad actions. So was he doing it to save himself, or was he really actually going after the greater good? Or was it a mixture? In which case, I feel like he kind of falls very much in the middle.
Yeah. I think for the most part, he was looking out for other people.
Mm,
I think he had selfish moments. I think him not telling Harry as early as he could have.
mhm,
He could have had many more conversations. They could have had years of prepping. They could have had years of looking for Horcruxes,
mhm.
right? I mean, really, like, he could have died with Harry having already destroyed every Horcrux and not having to go through a lot of what he goes through.
True.
But so I think he does make those selfish decisions. He even says that when he's talking to Harry in that like in between world. He even says he made the selfish choice to not tell Harry because he didn't want to have to do it. He didn't want Harry to have to live a different life. He wanted him to have as much of a normal life as possible for as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But doing that ultimately wasn't a good act for everybody else.
Yeah.
Right? He was selfishly trying to shield Harry because he learned to care for him so much. But that was hurting everybody else in the wizarding world and the muggle world, right? Like, this is affecting the muggles also. We're talking worldwide here, not just a few people.
Yeah.
So I think in some cases he acted selfishly, and in other cases he acted selflessly.
Yes.
Ultimately, his ultimate goal was selfless. He wanted to make sure that the majority of people were saved.
Mm-hmm.
So I would put him, somewhere in the spectrum. I would lean him closer to good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that's the fun of talking about all of this, is that, no one can be on the, hardly anybody can be completely on the actual end of each spectrum.
Yeah.
Which is a great segue to Voldemort, because I'm interested to hear your take on Voldemort, because you actually like villain characters more than I do.
I do.
And my instinct is to put Voldemort like full on end of the spectrum. He's evil. He's an awful person.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that he's just that. He's a person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He was a person with a past. So I'm sure that he's not all evil. So I'm interested to talk it through with you, because I think you'll probably be able to see a few more things than I do. Maybe some either redeeming qualities or maybe reasons for things.
Okay.
Because if it was up to me, I'd be like,
evil.
Shut and dry. He is evil. Next.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So do you want to start? Do you have some thoughts?
It's hard for me. I need to like go back and figure out exactly what was his. Do you have more information about his past? Can you give me like a little rundown of his past a little bit, because I'm feeling I did my research and now my brain is like
What?
I don't remember anything. So tell me about his past, and hopefully that'll kickstart my brain.
So Voldemort is the long lost descendant of Salazar Slytherin,
Mm-hmm.
who we already know was a little problematic at times. I'll say problematic because we don't know enough about him for me to say otherwise.
Yes.
He is born to a mother who has basically nothing left. She grew up in not the greatest household. They've all got a little bit of an unstable streak. His grandfather, his uncle, and his mom. They're all a little unstable.
Mm-hmm.
She's never really been taught how to control her magic and use it properly. She forces a muggle with magic into loving her, and she gets pregnant, and when she takes the spell off of him because she thinks that he's learned to love her, he's like, F you, and he leaves. She's brokenhearted, and she basically dies. And I don't think she had to. She just didn't want to live.
Yeah.
She had no will at that point to live. So she dies, and she leaves the baby in the care of a muggle orphanage. Which is interesting to me that she didn't try to seek out a wizard place, but she started living like a muggle. She didn't want to be a witch anymore, because that's one of the reasons he left her. Like, she was a witch, and he was like, oh, heck no.
So she projected that onto where she put her kid.
Right. So she puts him in a muggle orphanage, and the only thing that she had was a locket, and she doesn't even give it to him. She sells it. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, she sells the locket in like a last ditch attempt because she's like living as a muggle. I don't know. I can't remember 100% now. Anyway, she leaves him in a muggle orphanage. And as we know, wizards who grow up in muggle world are very confused.
Yes.
And, so he grows up and he's very different than the other kids. He has a lot of anger issues because of that. He does a lot of things that he shouldn't do, partly because he has magic and he doesn't know how to control it and he has no one there teaching him or helping him. But he does sorry, everything's shaking because my dogs are deciding to shift right now. He does it is kind of assumed in the book, or hinted to, that he kind of has always had a not great streak with his temper and things that he does, right? He's not just like losing control with his magic like normal kids. He, at a very young age, realizes, even though he doesn't know what's happening, he realizes that he can like use it to his advantage, and not necessarily in the best way.
Yeah.
So he does a lot of like torturing kids, playing tricks on them, stealing things from them, stuff like that. And a lot of that has to do with his anger at being an orphan and all of those things, I'm sure. But yeah, so that's kind of him growing up. And when he's finally told that he's a wizard, he doesn't even question it. He's like, heck yeah, I am. When do you get me out of this place? He's ready to believe that he's a wizard, not like Harry, who questions it. Voldemort is like, I knew it. I knew I was different. I knew I was better.
Yeah.
Get me out of here. And he very quickly rises to power in Hogwarts. He gets a friend group. He's very much like leader of the pack. And teachers love him. He's very smart. He's great in all of his classes. He clearly has a lot of talent, but weird things seem to happen around him. He, and Dumbledore is the only one that kind of sees that and keeps an eye on him. And that's because Dumbledore is the one that meets Tom for the first time and tells him he's a wizard and all of those things.
Right.
So, and Dumbledore kind of knows from that very first interaction that he had some problems, but he even tells Harry asks, did you know then what he was going to become? And he says, like, no. I mean, how could you know?
Yeah.
He just knew that Tom didn't know how to control his anger.
Yeah.
And had some problems, had some issues. And he just didn't know how that was going to pan out. You never know. So anyway, and obviously he's put into Slytherin house because he is the heir of Slytherin, and while he's there, he finds out that he's the heir of Slytherin, and he opens the Chamber of Secrets and he blames it on Hagrid, and he gets a whole group of people who already start calling themselves the Death Eaters while he's in school. He's already kind of going by the name Voldemort while he's in school, but it's like a hush-hush thing. And those Death Eaters follow him and become his first group of Death Eaters.
Yeah.
And he already starts to look for trinkets. That's already been something he's done anyway. But he already starts to look for trinkets that he can turn into Horcruxes before he graduates. He asks Slughorn.
Right.
He asks Slughorn about Horcruxes and kind of cons him into telling him a little bit more.
Yeah.
His opinion cons him into telling him his opinion. He really already knows about Horcruxes.
Obviously, he wouldn't ask if he didn't.
Yeah. So, and then after he graduates, what Dumbledore figures out is that Voldemort basically spends his time looking for more trinkets to turn into Horcruxes, building his power as quietly as possible and his following. But he wants to come back to Hogwarts. The one thing that you do see, the one kind of redeeming thing, I don't know, that you do see is that he does actually love Hogwarts. He loved learning. He loves the magical world. And he did want to be a teacher. That is something he wanted. Now, whether or not Dumbledore kind of hints that, like, did he want to be a teacher for the good of it? Or did he want to be a teacher because of the influence he could have on young minds?
Yeah.
in a negative way,
Yeah.
you know, but he also wanted to be able to have access to the castle to find more trinkets to turn into Horcruxes because he liked the idea of having things from each house, something that was like powerful
Yeah.
and connected to powerful wizards, or something that meant something to him, like his mom's locket.
Yeah.
And the ring of Marvolo Gaunt, which is passed down from Slytherin, and
Mhm.
you know, um, the three brothers. It has the stone of the mark of the three brothers. So he's not only Slytherin's descendant, he's a descendant of the Marvolo brothers, the who are the original makers or holders of the Deathly Hallows.
Yeah.
So he's got very powerful blood in him. And while he's still at school, oh, the other thing, yeah, while he's still at school, during I'm assuming a summer break,
Mhm.
because it wasn't like during school, he actually does kill his father and grandparents and
Mhm.
his uncle. Right? No, he doesn't kill his uncle. His uncle gets framed. Does he kill his uncle? He kills his uncle later. I'm pretty sure. He kills his father and grandparents while he's still in school, but I think he goes back after realizing that the ring is a thing. I think that's when he goes back and finds the house, and I want to say kills his uncle and takes the ring. I'm almost positive.
Okay.
I'm almost positive he kills his uncle. If I'm wrong, people are going to come at me.
We can cut this part
Anyway,
out.
the point is, he does, even while he's at school, he does go and kill. Like he's already he's already there.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of the background to his life.
Right. So, in my thought, I mean, a lot happens with it. Do I think that he is like all in all good? No, I don't think that he's a good character. I don't think that he falls on the good spectrum, but I think that you can
Mm,
see where that happens for him. And obviously it happens from a very young age, and that happens for some people. Like some people just get the short end of the stick for everything, and that is very obvious in how they grow up, and that happens. I mean,
mm-hmm,
obviously he was born into, social class has a lot to do with things sometimes. So when you're born into like a poor class, especially in the time that things were happening, it that affects you. You're kind of told that you're lower status, and then to have
mm-hmm,
a mother, going through all this stuff, seeing all the stuff that his mom goes through, and puts him in a muggle orphanage, and then dies, all of that. It's very much a telling story of you're not good enough. I don't want you. All of those things that are very much like you have no power, you have no control. You're not good at all. So he
mm-hmm,
has all of these things being told to him, whether or not verbally or just by actions. And
mm-hmm,
and so then he has magic, and he has to cope with all of that. And does he get to cope with them in very good ways? No. He tortures kids. He does all of these, things that are questionable at the best to to cope with all the things that he's been told. So do
mm-hmm,
are they good things that he's doing? No. Does he learn how to manipulate the world to the best of his ability based on what he's got? Yeah, he's got it. That's his survival mechanism. That's his technique to get through the shitty life that he's been given at that point. So when he was given the chance and is told that he's a wizard, he's like, "Oh, hell yeah. I
mm-hmm.
knew I was better than this." Like, is that a sense that he's probably had to tell himself because of all the stuff that he's been given? Yeah, that's probably part of his coping mechanism, is to be told, telling himself, I must be better than this. The things must be happening for a reason. I can do all of these things other kids can't. Like, I must be better. And so when he gets the chance to get all of this control, especially by going to school, learning that he's the heir of Slytherin, and finding out all of these things and all these things that he can do and can be capable of, it 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 fills up all of the holes in a way where it inflates you so big that you become somewhat, I would say, insane, or out of your mind, and you get the goals that you probably would have gotten in a much more vain and uh, eccentric kind of way. So like instead of having the goals to become a teacher for wanting to teach people, you want to have that power to influence other people because you're so great, because that was your coping mechanism when you were younger. So,
Mm.
I can see where it all happened and why. Are the things that he's doing good? No. Does he have
Mm.
obviously some sort of mental block up that kind of, I would say, puts him either in kind of a sociopathic tendency? Because I don't really feel like we ever see a break for him where you get a lot of emotion when he's older.
Mm-mm.
You
Mm-mm.
don't get a moment of release where like he's like, "Oh, I care about this thing." It's very much always just this to get what I want. And for me that kind of says, okay, so maybe there's a lack of remorse there. So maybe a part of the coping mechanisms that he's developed has become somewhat sociopathic. So
Mm-hmm.
does that explain what happens and like how he gets to where he is? Yeah. Does that make him redeemable? Probably not.
Mm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Actually, as you're saying all of that, my brain is like, "Ooh, ooh, ooh."
Mhm.
Because you're right, like I never really thought about that before, but finding out you're a wizard. Okay, I'm going to try to explain what's going on in my head cuz sometimes my head has too many ideas at one time.
Mhm.
Finding out that you're a wizard, having all of this crap happen to you, growing up in the lower status, not having any friends because you're different and you're weird and all of these things, right? And
Yeah.
knowing that your mother died and gave you up as a baby and died.
Yeah.
Then finding out you're a wizard and that she was a wizard too. And Dumbledore kind of says this, that he's sure that Voldemort kind of felt resentment that she was a wizard and probably could have lived and chose not to.
Yeah.
Like chose to give him to an orphanage and die,
Yeah.
even though she probably could have done something to stop it.
That was her choice. She made that decision.
Right. And I think now that I'm thinking about it, I mean I knew that on a surface level, but now as you're kind of going through things, I'm thinking like I wonder if that was an underlying like a major underlying cause for why he hated death so much. Why he was so against dying.
Yeah.
Because he was like, I am never going to choose to do that. I'm never going to be my mom and choose to die if I have any other choice.
Yeah. No,
You
that's
know?
like that's unacceptable at that point for him.
Mhm.
Death is unacceptable.
Yeah, she made it a really negative thing for him.
Yeah.
Like death is like the worst thing that could possibly happen.
Mhm.
And so he has this goal of doing whatever he can to not die and not be like her as much as possible, you know? And yeah, that does kind of cause an obsession. I
But
could see how that would.
with causing death for other people, he's almost projecting his fear and curiosity of death that he doesn't get to have because of the effects of his mom onto other people by making them die.
Yeah, yeah. Like somehow maybe taking those lives, and it's true, right? Taking those lives of other people
Mhm.
will keep him from dying because it splits his soul and he can take his soul and he can put it into something. So
Mhm.
the more he takes someone else's life, the more other people die, the more he won't die,
Yes.
right? And it's not really logical. It's not, but like you said, if he's developed these sociopathic um tendencies, then he's not thinking clearly. You don't have clear thoughts. You do obsess about things. You only think about, you know, yourself, and it's almost a flight or fight thing. Like your body is in total 100% fight mode, doesn't care about anything
Well,
else.
yeah, he's been in survival mode since he was a child. That's how he
Yeah.
knows how to cope with everything.
Yeah. And he never really had anybody to help him through that as a kid.
Mhm.
I think Dumbledore tried a little bit, but not really. Like Dumbledore meets him and sees how messed up he is, and he does keep an eye on him and he talks to him a little bit. But I think what Tom Riddle really needed was someone who really cared and wouldn't give up
Yeah.
to sit down with him as early as possible and talk to him about things. And and work things out with him, and you know, he needed therapy,
Yeah.
basically.
Yes, he
He
did.
needed a therapist.
Yes, he
Yeah.
did.
He desperately needed a therapist. He needed someone to really help him and give him better coping mechanisms and teach him why, you know, doing these things is wrong, and show him different ways to achieve the same good feeling that he had,
Yeah.
the same feeling of control
Yeah.
in a different way.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that you could have control of your life and you don't have to do it the way that you're doing it. There's other ways to have control of your life and make sure that, you know, um
And
yeah.
he never had love. Like, he never
Mm-mm.
experienced love. So that wasn't even in his, like, palette.
No.
That wasn't even something he knew about. So imagine how different his life could have been, and, like, the way he would have reacted to things if he had experienced love and kind of learned that that could be a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, so his association with love, right? He never had one. He had a mother who didn't love him enough, in his eyes, didn't love him enough to stay with him. Now, the real situation is she was mentally ill herself. She was sick herself.
Mhm.
And she had problems coping. She could not cope with her life enough. And she did actually love Tom enough to try to put him in a situation that might be better for him, to
Mhm.
try to save him,
Mhm.
and at least put him somewhere where he would be looked after and cared for, because she knew she couldn't. And that's a struggle I think a lot of kids who are put up for adoption have sometimes,
Yeah.
is that struggle between, like, well, why was I put up for adoption? Didn't she love me? Didn't they want me? And I think she just knew she couldn't, she, you know, as much as she did love him, she clearly loved him. And the reason I say she clearly loved him is that she could have just left him anywhere. She could have killed him. She could have, you know, I mean, she was not ready to live. She could have very well taken that out on the baby. Being pregnant with the guy that she loved, she could have very well not wanted him at all.
True.
You know, there's a lot of situations here, but she named him after the man she loved, even though he didn't love her anymore. I
Mhm.
mean, it was clearly very important to her that she had this baby. It was clearly very, like, it was something that she was very proud of, because she loved the Tom Sr. a
Mhm.
lot. And so she named the baby after him, even though he had left her. And then she doesn't just give him Tom Sr.'s name, right? She gives him the middle name of Marvolo, which is her family name, which was also very important to her.
Mhm.
And she did love her family. She just couldn't live with them anymore, right? They were very toxic.
Yeah.
But those are important names to her. She didn't just name him John Smith
That's true.
and put him in an orphanage, you know?
Yeah.
She named him, she gave him names that were important things for her.
That's very
So
true.
she did love him, it's just that he didn't see that.
Yeah, and
And
he never
he didn't feel,
yeah.
yeah, he didn't feel loved. So, yeah, it's very sad. Yeah, and then you can tell that the ladies in the orphanage just don't really know how to deal with him.
Mhm.
And I think that that's sad that he didn't have support from the people running the orphanage. He didn't have someone sit down with him and help him through those feelings he was having and talk to him about being bullied.
Mhm.
They kind of know that it's happening, but can't really prove that it's happening, so they just kind of don't say anything to him.
Yeah.
And that's not really the way to deal with it. He needed someone at a young age to sit him down and stop him and tell him why things were wrong and work things out with him, and, you know,
Yeah.
really dig deep. And like I said, he needed therapy. He needed therapy from day one,
Yes.
and he didn't get that.
Yes.
You know, therapy's important, people, for everybody.
Working out your emotions and understanding where they're coming from is important, and, you know,
I think Dumbledore could have used some therapy
I
after everything with his sister. I think it would have been great for Dumbledore to get some therapy and talk to
I
somebody.
think pretty much everybody in the Harry Potter world need a little bit of therapy.
Man, I'm telling you.
They went through some
Yeah.
trauma.
Yeah. Oof. Woo. But Yeah, so Voldemort's a little bit more he's a little harder
Mhm.
to find the good
Mhm.
because he never really had a chance to be good, and like you said, he's clearly got some psychopathic, what's the other word I'm looking for? Sociopathic?
My interpretation would be sociopathic because I
Sociopathic.
think psychopathic does involve emotions and remorse.
Mm.
I think it's just kind of, we could go into the psychology of that. I think it's definitely more sociopathic where there's just kind of like the emotions are turned off and it's very much just based on his goals, but like there wasn't a chance for him to learn love, so there wasn't a chance for his coping mechanisms to involve that. So especially like I said in his adulthood. Perhaps there were some of those emotions when he was younger, but we don't get to see them. Okay, garbage truck. We don't get to see uh we never see that. So it seems as though if he feels love at all or remorse for the things that he's causing, we don't get to see it. So that's where I get the sociopathic feeling from him, where like it's just business and it's almost fun.
Yeah, I would agree with you that yeah, that sociopath is probably his where he falls.
Yeah. Which like is that his
And
fault? Kind of not.
no, it's a yeah, it has a lot to do with how he grew up in his situation, which is true for a lot of people who have
Yeah.
that diagnosis. A
Yeah.
lot of times it stems from something. It's not just like random, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of times come here. It's not just random. There's reasons for it.
Yeah, a lot of it
And
comes from
again,
the response to trauma.
right. And again, therapy would do wonders.
Yeah.
People There are tons of people who live healthy, productive, normal lives who are technically considered sociopaths, but they get therapy and they work on it and they talk to people and
Mm,
they learn to cope with that diagnosis and work with it rather than against it, you know?
mhm,
So, I think he could have done that. He just never had the tools to do that.
mm-mm.
And by the time he was at Hogwarts, it was almost too late.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's the argument that is it ever too late? Can people be really? But like for him especially, because he had magic and because of all of these things, at least by the time he graduates high school,
Yeah.
by the time he graduates, I know you can see Lily. By the time he graduates Hogwarts, it really is. I mean, he's so deep in it.
Yeah.
He's already split his soul
Yeah.
and killed people, and I mean it would have been hard to rehabilitate him at that point, or to get him to listen, you
Yeah.
know? So, but I still feel like people could have tried. Dumbledore could have tried harder. I do kind of feel like Dumbledore could have tried to step in a little bit more
Yeah.
and really talk to him, or someone could have. But, you know, then it wouldn't be a fun series. Then we wouldn't have a villain,
That's true.
you know. So, there you go.
Truly a very villainous villain. Is he on the darker and more bad scale? Yes, I would think so. But
Yeah.
we know why, and we know where things went wrong, where he became that way. So I think this is actually one of those times where, we actually do have a person who generally is a bit more bad.
Yeah.
And
If you
Lily
guys are
is
wondering, if you guys who are listening to this and not watching the YouTube channel are wondering why Veronica's laughing so much, it's because my dog has decided to enter the screen, and she keeps licking me. There she is.
Ooh.
She's, she's got itchy ear. She's got itchy ear. Um, yeah. Hello, Lily. This is Lily. She's Pitbull Basset Hound. Hello.
Very
Say hi.
excited.
Yeah, she's just like, I've been not paying attention to her pretty much all morning. So hey, that's my tea. So anyway, yeah, he definitely falls more on the evil side of the spectrum,
Mhm.
but due to circumstance, happenstance, whatever you want to say, rather than him just deciding to be evil for
Yeah.
the heck of it. And I think that's what we learn a lot when we do this podcast, is that a lot of times the evil characters, there are reasons that they are that way.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them aren't quite as evil as others.
Yeah.
I would say Voldemort is very, very, very on the evil side of the spectrum.
Yes.
But yeah, so you're right. There are reasons for it, and it has to do with his childhood, and it has to do with how he was raised, and it has to do Hoover. Wow, they're just like, it's a thing today. And it has to do with Hoover. Oh my god. I swear we're not going to finish this podcast. It's just going to be my dogs. Stop. Come here. You can enter now. Come here. Come here. Okay, shh. I got to close this podcast out. Yeah, this is my other dog, Hoover. For those of you not watching, he's also apparently needing attention. So there you go. Normally I have the door closed, but because I hurt my toe and I'm on my bed with my foot elevated, I forgot to close the door so my dogs can come in. So here we are. We have guests today, special guests.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow, you're the first special guests, you and Lily, the first ones. I know. Can you lay down? Can you lay down? Hoover's a little more calm than Lily, so that's good. Anyway, so, all right, cool. Well, I love talking Harry Potter. I think this was very fun. Yes. If there is anything that we missed with Dumbledore and Voldemort that you're like, wait, you didn't say this, please comment down below and have a whole discussion on any of our podcasts. I'd love to see you guys have discussions in the comments.
Yes.
You can always email us. The email address is always below in the description. And, also give us more topics if you want us to discuss more characters from the Harry Potter series, or if there's something we haven't touched on yet, a series or a, mythology story or folklore story or whatever, anything that fits within the mythological pop culture realm, please let us know. Please email us or put a comment down below and tell us what you'd like to hear next. And thanks for joining us again. Hoover's like fastest. Wait, ready? Oh.
Wow.
I stopped petting him, so now he's like, wait a minute.
If you guys like dogs or Harry Potter, make sure to like or star or upvote this podcast / video wherever you're listening to it.
Yeah. If you'd like to see more of my dogs, let me know. Maybe I'll just continue to film on my bed, and they can be special guests from now on. Can you believe Hoover's 10?
He's 10 old boy. Now.
Look, he's getting. I mean, he's always had white, obviously, but look, he's getting white around his eye where his dark hair always used to be. Oh, it's getting all white. And his beard, this used to be a lot darker, and now it's turning all white now.
He's an old man.
Old man. Yeah, he's getting grumpy too. He hates when Lily cuddles with him too much or steps on him. He used to not care, but he doesn't like it anymore. Anyway, can you hear Lily chewing on her ball? Is that in the background? Oh, great. I can't stop her from doing that. She's doing it regardless.
We're almost done. It's okay.
Anyway, all right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us again here on Baphomet's Cozy Perch. I can't wait to decide what we're going to talk about next time.
I know.
It's always a surprise. So, but until next week, I am Caitlin.
I'm still Veronica.
This is Hoover. He's like, I'm trying to lay down. This is Hoover.
Hi.
Say hi, Hoover. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
He's so cute. Oh,
a good boy.